Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn, and welcome to Movie Mayhem. This is a new series where I talk about the latest horror movies coming out and if they're worth watching or if you should just skip them and just watch a better film instead. This week, I'm going to be talking about Pet Sematary Bloodline, which is the latest in a string of very disappointing adaptations of the Stephen King novel. So right off the bat, I want to get something like off my chest. There's never been a really great adaptation of Pet Cemetery. Written by Stephen King, it's rightly regarded as his most personal and chilling works. The 1989 version comes close with the more terrifying and harrowing moments really leaping off the page and onto the crimson soaked screen. While I think Lambert's film does a decent job at connecting the scares as well as the emotional core in the book. It never quite gets there. The remake, I think the less said, the better. It's a mess. Like, I kind of like how ballsy the ending is, but as an adaptation, it's just all over the place. And its speed runs through a lot of the really compelling aspects of the book, namely Timmy Baterman, who is a key character not only in the novel, but in Judd Crandall's past. This is kind of frustrating because I think Timmy is a really fascinating character. To give you just sort of like a very quick summary, Timmy in the book is a soldier that is buried in the pet cemetery and comes back to life. He is a literal corpse that seems to be sort of demon possessed, and he goes around town just terrorizing everybody. And eventually he reveals the townspeople's dark sins. And I think that's a really cool premise. His presence really looms large in the town of Ludlow, so much so that he almost becomes an urban legend decades after his demise. Timmy is given a little bit of a flashback in the 1989 version, of course. And then in 2019, he's basically a blinker, you miss it sort of mentioned in a news article during like a pretty lame research montage. So yeah, it's very baffling how they have this character that's really interesting and they never do anything with him. But what was kind of interesting about the idea of doing a prequel to Pet Cemetery and focusing on Judd Crandall is Timmy would be like a much bigger character. Was it good? Pet Cemetery Bloodline? Um, no, unfortunately, it's not. The biggest problem is it's just very generic. Like it's as generic as the title suggests. It's a prequel nobody really asked for, but I think if you're familiar with King's novel, you could see the potential where it could have been really interesting. Unfortunately, the filmmakers are just hell bent on making everything as safe and sanitized as possible. On a fundamental level, it feels like the director, Lindsay Beard, in her feature film debut, doesn't really seem to really care about the project. Every element of this is just very lackluster. And it feels just like everything goes through the motions. It's checking off as many horror cliches as possible. And it never really crafts anything original or thought provoking. The best way I think I could describe this is it kind of feels like a bargain basement straight to DVD movie that is one of those like IPs where the studio purchased non-related project and just slapped on a name of an IP, kind of like what they did with the Hellraiser franchise for a while. Sure, there are familiar names and settings, but it has zero of the guttural heartbreak and icy terror of King's masterpiece. Hell, this makes the remake look really well done by comparison, and that's really saying something. Just outside of everything being really bland, I think the other biggest problem with this is the world building is non-existent. You don't really get that local charm and flavor of this small town of Ludlow. The town and its citizens should be a character all by itself. But again, everything is so bland that it ends up being just any place USA. It's a sleepy New England town where no one has an accent because why bother? No one is upset by Timmy coming back, despite presumably everybody attending his funeral. It's just little things like that that just really pile on to something very unremarkable. Like Jackson White plays Judd Crandall, and this is another area where I feel like the film really suffers. White kind of manages to be very, again, bland, very milk toast. And he takes a really fascinating soul of the earth character like Judd Crandall and makes him into a zombie. And I feel like more of a zombie than the actual resurrected corpse in the film. So, yes, White has zero personality, and you kind of miss those magic little touches that the previous actors used to bring this character to life. I hate bagging on the actors, but really everybody is just to various degrees, just not good. And, given the material, you can't really blame them. So, Pet Cemetery Bloodline, it does come out October 6th on Paramount Plus if you're curious to check it out. But it's one of those movies I think it's fine to skip. And hopefully someday we will get a really great, proper Pet Cemetery adaptation. That's it for my review. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and hearing my thoughts on this movie. And please, like and subscribe. We put out content daily, so you don't want to miss that.